Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Jacob Bennett with Bulldog Analytics, and today I want to share with you an external tool that I recently found, and I have been using it for literally everything, every report, every model that I build out. It's extremely useful. I've been searching for something like this for a long time. It's an external tool called Measure Killer. Now, it's not specific to only killing measures. What it actually does is it cleans up all native columns, calculated columns, measures, field parameters, etc. in your report that aren't being used within the actual visualization and reporting in your file. So it's not only a great tool to clean up and reduce the size of your PBIX file, but it also allows for the cleanup of unused measures in your fields pane so that navigating through the fields and maintaining the file going forward is a much more streamlined experience. Again, I can't accentuate enough how awesome this tool is. There's a free version, that's what we're gonna run through today, so let's go ahead and look at my screen and walk through an example. All right, so before we get started, obviously we need to download the application. So my recommendation is going to Google and Googling Measure Killer. As you can see here, the first option is brunner.bi, and that's what we're about to click on. You'll also notice that the Microsoft Apps link pops up. There is an option to download from the Microsoft app. However, I believe that aligns with the paid version. So anyways, I would recommend going the route of just downloading directly from their website. So let's go ahead and click on this link. Now, as I just mentioned, there is a paid version that I believe kind of gets into tenant management, tenant level management. In this version that we're going to walk through today, it's really just for local files on your desktop. As you'll notice here, there's this sidebar, and you can kind of scroll through if you want to see some of the interfaces and notes on kind of what this application does, as well as the paid versions. But if I were to click down to the free download, it takes me directly to where I need to be. Now there's two options here, the Measure Killer Admin and the Measure Killer Portable. We are interested in the second option, the Measure Killer Portable. So go ahead and click on that and it'll take you through a brief installation process. All right, once you have that installed, we can walk through how this works. So here, as you can see, I've got this example personal finance dashboard. This was a project that I helped a friend out with a couple years ago, last year actually, and I think it's a good candidate to show how the functionality of Measure Killer works. So as you can see, I've got it pinned to my toolbar down here, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it to launch. As that's launching, just a note, this is a little bit different from other Power BI external tools in that it doesn't integrate with your toolbar across the top of your PBIX dashboard files. It's actually a separate application that lives on your desktop and is able to interact with the metadata of your Power BI desktop reports and edit it if you choose to allow it to do so. So once you get to this screen, we're going to go ahead and click on Single Report / Dataset. It's going to find all the Power BI files open on your desktop. Once that loads, it'll either default to the file that you have open or a different file you have open, and you can click the drop down to select the correct file. We'll go ahead and click Next. Once that loads, you'll see the interface for Measure Killer. We're going to jump up to the top left and click Run. Now it actually returns very quickly, so you'll see a couple different sections here on this screen. First, we've got our execution log. Then I'll jump down, we've got this execution summary, so it shows just a couple metrics around what it just ran. So it's telling us that 96% of the objects in our report, so that's native columns, calculated columns, measures, field parameters, calculated tables, etc. 96% of that is being used. 4% is being unused, which is our opportunity for cleanup. 1% is used by unused. So what that basically indicates is that there is a column or calculation in your report that is a dependency for another calculation in your report. But that ultimate calculation that is referencing those objects doesn't get leveraged in the report or the visuals in your report. So it's being used by unused. Just an additional level of insights with that definition there. So you've also got a local date table. We've got a count of 14 unused measures, 3 unused columns, 1 unused calculated column, and then some insights into the relationships that exist in your model. Aside from any cleanup or optimization, streamlining of your file, this is some great insights to run and be able to see. Now let's jump over to this results window. So as you can see, you've got the name of the object, the type, so again, calculated columns, measures, field parameters, that's all that's going to show up there. Then you've got the name of the table or page, the source, which is just the name of your file, the size of the object, the status, whether it's used, unused, or used by unused, as we just discussed, and then the number of uses. So this results window is very useful, and you can actually sort by each of these columns as you please. So it auto sorts on size, I believe, which is very interesting because you can kind of identify if you've got a very large PBIX file where there are some opportunities for cleanup to reduce the file size based on if the status is unused. But I'm going to go ahead and sort by status. So you'll see that it puts the unused here at the top. These are all opportunities for cleanup. And I've got 3 columns, as you can see, 1 calculated column, and then a bunch of measures. Now, as you'll see, anything that is a measure doesn't take up any space because it's not being used anywhere in my report. It's all calculated on the fly. And so from a file size standpoint, deleting measures or killing measures, as the title of this tool calls it, isn't actually reducing the file size. But what it does do is it streamlines your experience as you navigate through those fields in your fields pane and kind of maintain the report going forward. So if I scroll through, you'll see all this has a used status, which means that it's required for the visuals that are built. And then down here we've got 2 columns in 2 different tables that have that used by unused status. So there's actually this breakout option, and I'll do it on this bottom one here, but it says that this total amount column is used in an artifact or object that's located in a table. So if we break that out, we see that this goal measure, as you can see, that lives in our goals table is dependent on this total amount column. However, the ultimate measure that we built from it is being unused. So this used by unused basically indicates, yes, it's getting referenced somewhere in your model, but that ultimate place that it's getting referenced is not being used. So that's an opportunity for cleanup. Now again, aside from the primary function of this tool, which is to clean up your file and reduce file size and remove measures, just the ability to break out these different objects and measures and be able to see where they're used in your visuals, whether it's a card, funnel, pie chart, it shows the visuals that it's being used. It shows which table or page it's being used on. It shows other measures that are referencing those calculations or measures. It's a really powerful tool just to be able to dig into that side of things. So feel free to connect to a PBIX on your desktop and just kind of explore it in this manner as well. Now, one other thing to point out on this results tab is you also have a couple of additional options up here. I like to point out the unused option, so it just automatically applies a filter, and these are kind of our opportunity objects or artifacts to delete from our model. Now, if I click over to tables, it just gives us the list of tables in our model, and it actually is really cool. It shows you the percentage used, and if it's got a green check mark and says used, that means that every element within that table is used in our report. But then for these other items, as an example, we've got 90% of the fields in this calculated table that are being used. We got 50% in this table that are being used, so on and so forth. So really cool. Again, it's got the breakout features so you can see which columns exist within. Now, if I go over to kill measures and calculated columns, it identifies the calculations in our report that are being unused or used by unused. And what's really cool is that this measure killer tool is actually connected to the metadata of our PBIX file for the personal finance dashboard. And if I select by just clicking on or doing control and selecting multiple, and I click kill selected, it will actually go back to my file that you see behind this measure killer window, and it will remove those objects or those calculations from my file. Now, what if I want to kill all? It'll remove the whole list from that file. So here we see we've got dash goal 2021 average monthly income. Let's just look those up over in our file real quick. So we've got dash goal, we see that it's there. 2021, you see that you've got average monthly income right there. So if we jump back to measure killer, let's go ahead and delete one at a time. So we'll say kill selected. Let's kill goal. You see that it now is removed. So if I go over to my file and I search goal, so you'll still see it there. And I found that I have to save and close out the file and then reopen it in order to see any of these changes, but it does indeed work. So I'm gonna do that real quick and then come back on screen. All right, I've closed it out and relaunched it, and if I come over to the data and search dash goal, you'll see that it no longer exists. So if we wanted to kill all as indicated in the interface, I'll pull that up. You can do that, you can save your file, close it out, and then you'll see that it removes all of those calculations from your file. Now you'll notice that this section only has calculations, so it has the measures and the calculated columns. What about columns that come from your source that aren't used? Well, if you go over to the Kill Columns option, this actually gives you a modified M code to load into Power Query in order to remove said columns. So you've got two different approaches here. You've got the Remove Columns option and you have the Remove Other Columns option. For anyone who's familiar with Power Query, this is just two ways to approach how you want to keep the columns you want to keep and remove the columns you want to remove. You'll see here if we navigate down to the column removal step, that it removes the columns, it identifies income, expense, total amount, and categories, which if I click back over to results and filter by unused, let's sort by type, you've got income, expense, total amount, and categories. Now the reason that balance and account measure does not pull through in that Kill Columns section where we can modify the M code is because these are actually DAX calculated tables. So there's no M code associated with it. That would be something we would need to go into the DAX code for that table and modify and remove if we see it as necessary. But let's go ahead and try out this approach. So if we go back over to the Kill Columns and copy the new M code, I can come over to my file, I can click the transform data, I'm going to click on the source that I am interested in editing, open up the advanced editor. I'm going to select all and I'm going to paste. So basically what it does is it adds this new removal step where it identifies any columns that don't need to be there and it removes them. Now this is only 3 columns, but there's a project I'm working on right now where it had like 400 or 500 columns in the source table and we were really only using like 30 of them. And I was really trying to figure out how to identify and remove the unused detail because it was adding to my file size. This was a great way to do it and it made it very easy on me. So now if I click done, it automatically removes those items that we don't need and I can click close and apply. Coming back to the Measure Killer interface, if you had other tables that also needed columns to be removed, you would do this drop down and it would list the tables and then you could load in that new M code into Power Query. All right, let me click back to the results table. That's really everything I wanted to cover. I also wanted to point out that you had this export results option. Everyone always loves to export to Excel, so there's your solution for that. And yeah, so that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or reach out. I've got my email in the description and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks guys.